If you want to see an absolute masterclass in rhetorical devastation, you need to watch New York Representative Gregory Meeks completely dismantle Secretary of State Marco Rubio. During a high-stakes House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing, Ranking Member Greg Meeks delivered a blistering, deeply personal cross-examination that left Rubio completely exposed. Meeks didn't just attack Rubio's policies, he explicitly targeted his legacy, contrasting the principled, statesmanlike record of Senator Marco Rubio with the unconstitutional, submissive actions of Secretary Marco Rubio. Accusing Rubio of capitulating to Elon Musk and an administration of arsonists, Meeks brought the ultimate receipts on an 84% cutting of the foreign affairs budget, wasted taxpayer-funded food, and a historic diplomatic brain drain. Meeks then dropped a chilling line that is spreading like wildfire across the internet, telling Rubio that the empire he stumbled upon is not one of influence, but a kingdom of ash. Let's dive right into this unforgettable clash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Rubio, I'm glad you are finally before this committee. Your testimony actually comes long after the State Department, under your leadership, took actions without required congressional consultation or that were contrary to the law. But I guess it's better late than never. But let me be clear, showing up months after the fact and refusing to stay until every member has questioned you for 5 minutes as entitled to under House rules are not the standards to which we hold the Secretary of State. Mr. Secretary, I've known you for a while, and I respected very much Senator Rubio, even when we disagreed. Senator Rubio was a principled statesman. Secretary Rubio, however, as we've seen in the past few months, is something different entirely. As a senator, you spoke often and forcefully about the dangers of executive overreach. You warned America not to lose its moral clarity or sacrifice democratic principles for short-term gain. Senator Rubio recognized that we cannot allow the executive branch to unilaterally determine the direction of the United States foreign policy without accountability to Congress. Secretary Rubio is doing precisely what Senator Rubio feared, withholding congressional appropriated funds, stonewalling oversight, and acting as if laws passed by this body are optional. Secretary Rubio has presided over the dismantling and destruction of everything Senator Rubio once defended. So although you may be the Secretary of State, the acting head of USAID, the National Security Advisor, the Archivist of America, the empire you have stumbled upon is not one of influence, sir. It is a kingdom of ash. So I ask, was it worth it? Was it worth it to allow the near extension of U.S. foreign assistance and USAID, which Senator Rubio said, and I quote, is a very cost-effective way not only to export our values and our example, but to advance our security and our economic interests? And lie is exactly what this administration has done again and again. Each time Elon Musk and his department of arsonists brag and mislead the American public about massively inflated savings or lie about the program they have cut and their purpose, they're not telling you about the food that rotted on the shelves while people went hungry, or the medicine that was undistributed to children needlessly suffering, or the trust that was lost by your actions. But I believe you know better, because you've said as much, and yet here we are. In 2022, Senator Rubio warned about the urgent and growing threat posed by China and called for a fully funded State Department and USAID. Senator Rubio wrote that soft power tools and alliances were vital to our national security. And today, Secretary Rubio is here to defend an 84% cut of the foreign affairs budget. How does hollowing out our State Department and dismantling USAID help us compete with China? How does the America Alone budget project American strength? On human rights, the contrast is even starker. Senator Rubio built his political brand on the cause of freedom and dignity. You condemned autocrats in Caracas, Havana, and Beijing for silencing dissent. But Secretary Rubio, he looks the other way when strongmen commit similar abuses. Secretary Rubio even defied a Supreme Court order to facilitate the return of a wrongly detained spouse of an American citizen. And when Senator Rubio became the first Hispanic American to serve as Secretary of State, he made sure to pull the ladder up behind him. In the name of dismantling efforts to making hiring and promotion fair, as you call it, wokeness, you have unlawfully dismantled programs designed to address decades of historical exclusion. These are not political experiments. They were congressionally supported efforts rooted in bipartisan recognition that our diplomatic corps must reflect the diversity and the strength of the nation it represents abroad. These are initiatives that Senator Rubio supported. You replaced experienced career employees with ideologues and political loyalists. Under your watch, sir, America's diplomatic and development corps have suffered the greatest brain drain in history, and America has been weakened and made more isolated by the actions of an administration that has abandoned its allies, cozied up to dictators, and conducted a foreign policy driven not by interests of the American people, but in support of the personal enrichment of the president and his family. And with that, I yield back.
The confrontation opened with intense friction, as Representative Meeks immediately called out Secretary Rubio for dodging congressional oversight. Meeks noted that Rubio was appearing months after the State Department carried out massive, legally dubious changes without consulting Congress, and was actively refusing to stay long enough for every single committee member to question him. Meeks then shifted to a devastating critique of Rubio's personal and political transformation. He reminded the room that he used to deeply respect Senator Rubio, even when they disagreed, because he was a principled leader who spoke out aggressively against executive overreach. Meeks noted that Senator Rubio once warned the nation never to sacrifice its moral clarity or allow the executive branch to unilaterally control foreign policy without accountability. Yet, Secretary Rubio is doing the exact opposite. Withholding legally appropriated funds, stonewalling oversight, and treating federal statutes passed by Congress as entirely optional. Meeks then asked the defining question of the entire hearing: was it worth it? He pressed Rubio on how he could allow the near-total destruction of USAID, an agency that Senator Rubio himself once fiercely defended as a vital, cost-effective tool to export American values and protect national security. Meeks took direct aim at Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, calling them a department of arsonists who are actively lying to the American public about inflated savings. Meeks brought the horrific receipts of this ideological crusade, reminding the committee of the massive amounts of taxpayer-funded relief food left to rot on shelves while global populations starved, and the life-saving medicine withheld from suffering children. The hypocrisy only grew starker as Meeks brought up China and global human rights. He reminded Rubio that in 2022, he explicitly called for a fully funded State Department to combat Chinese global influence. Meeks demanded to know how defending a staggering 84% cut to the foreign affairs budget helps America compete with Beijing, or how an America-alone budget projects any real strength. He slammed Rubio for building a political career on standing up to autocrats in Havana, Caracas, and Beijing, only to look the other way now when global strongmen commit identical human rights abuses. Meeks even exposed that Rubio's department actively defied a Supreme Court order meant to facilitate the return of a wrongfully detained spouse of an American citizen. Finally, Meeks called out Rubio, the first Hispanic American Secretary of State, for pulling up the ladder behind him. He blasted Rubio for unlawfully dismantling vital diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives under the guise of fighting wokeness, replacing seasoned, expert career diplomats with hyper-partisan political loyalists. Meeks concluded by stating that under Rubio's watch, America's diplomatic corps has suffered the greatest brain drain in its history, leaving the United States weak, isolated, and running a foreign policy designed purely to enrich the president and his family. Representative Greg Meeks said exactly what needed to be said. He held up a mirror to Marco Rubio and forced him to look at the total betrayal of his own lifelong political principles. When a Secretary of State allows unelected billionaires to gut our national security infrastructure and bypass the law, it doesn't make America strong. It leaves our global standing completely hollowed out. What did you think of Greg Meeks absolutely lighting into Marco Rubio? Did he successfully expose Rubio's hypocrisy and executive overreach? Or do you think Rubio is doing what's necessary to rein in government spending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.